The fog rolled in like a fucking omen. Thick. Silent. Red from the brake lights of the sheriff's cruiser parked at the edge of the highway. Deputy Carter stood beside the vehicle, cigarette between trembling fingers, trying not to puke. The call had come in just after 3 a.m., girl found on Old Tallow Road, wandering barefoot, bleeding, not speaking. She was maybe 13. When Carter approached, flashlight in hand, he saw her standing in the middle of the road like a broken porcelain doll. Mud, blood, and bruises covered her legs. Her hands were clenched tight, nails digging into the flesh. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. Just stared straight ahead, into nothing. And then, softly, like some fucked up lullaby, she whispered. "He wears their skin." That was 2 nights ago. Now, Detective Richard Morrow stared at the case file spread across the diner table, empty coffee cups scattered around like casualties of war. His hands shook not from caffeine, but withdrawal. He hadn't touched a bottle in 23 days. Not since his daughter's funeral. The girl, unidentified, traumatized, nonverbal, was now under psych watch in St. Mary's. Doctors said her mind had fractured. But Morrow didn't believe in fragile minds. He believed in monsters. And this girl had seen one. The bodies of 2 missing teens had turned up yesterday. Shallow graves. Torn flesh. Teeth marks. Teeth. Fucking. Marks. Morrow lit a cigarette inside the diner. The waitress gave him a look. He didn't give a shit. Across from him sat Officer Daniela Cruz, young, sharp, too clean for this. She was the one who found the 3rd victim's backpack near an abandoned storm drain. "Want to guess what they found inside?" she asked, her voice low. Morrow took a drag. "Let me guess. More fucking teeth?" Cruz nodded. 32. Human. From at least 6 different people. Morrow exhaled smoke, looked out into the parking lot, where fog still lingered like the ghost of something vile. His fingers brushed the photo of the girl again. She had drawn something in charcoal the day before. A tall man in a mask. Animal skull. Antlers. And skin, stitched together like a patchwork quilt of agony. Cruz glanced at the sketch. "Fucking sick," she muttered. "No," Morrow said, voice dry. "This isn't sick. This is evil. Real, old school, crawl out of the woods evil." He stood up. "Let's go. I want to see where they found her." "You sure?" Cruz asked. "You're not looking too hot. Neither are the kids they're pulling out of the dirt. Old Tallow Road didn't show up on GPS. It was the kind of road that looked forgotten even by God, narrow, cracked asphalt swallowed by weeds and the bones of roadkill." The cruiser bumped along the broken surface, fog crawling between the trees like it had its own agenda. Morrow rode shotgun, eyes hollow, thumb tapping his lighter against his knee. Cruz drove in silence, stealing glances at him every now and then. He looked like shit. Pale. Gaunt. Haunted. "Just so you know," she said eventually, "they say the place where they found her used to be an old logging camp. Got shut down in the 80s after a fire." Morrow grunted. "Perfect place to dump bodies and vanish. Locals say weird shit happens out here. People hear voices in the woods. Screams." He lit a cigarette. "Locals always say shit. Doesn't mean they're wrong." They parked at the barrier. Beyond it, the forest choked the path like a throat closing over a scream. They walked in silence, past collapsed cabins and rusted metal ruins. The air reeked of mold and death. And then, there it was. A concrete slab, half buried in moss. The entrance to a storm bunker, maybe? Or something worse. The FBI had sealed it off after extracting the girl. But someone had torn through the yellow tape, recently. Morrow crouched, touched the broken edge of a wood panel. Fresh splinters. "Someone's been back here," he said. Cruz looked around. "Why?" "Either they're cleaning up, or they're not done." He stepped down the narrow stairs into the darkness. The air changed. Colder. Thicker. Like the walls themselves remembered screams. He clicked on his flashlight. The beam cut through the dark and revealed hell. Chains. Rusted. Bolted into the wall. Blood dried like smeared paint. Scratches. Hundreds. Claw marks where fingernails had dug desperately into stone. In the corner, a broken child's doll. One arm gone. The head melted from heat. Cruz gagged. Morrow didn't move. This wasn't just a holding cell, he said. It was a fucking stage. Cruz pointed at the far wall. Carvings. Symbols. Letters. What is that? She whispered. Morrow traced one with his finger. Latin. Old. Some kind of prayer or invocation. Something shifted in the dark. Both froze. Then, a sound. Wet. Ragged breathing. From the corner. Morrow drew his gun. Flashlight shaking. The beam landed on a man. Naked. Covered in blood. His skin was carved with symbols. Eyes wide, unblinking. He smiled. And said, "Do you want to see God too?" Morrow didn't hesitate. The second the man spoke, he fired. The bullet caught the freak in the shoulder, spinning him against the wall with a howl. "Don't fucking move!" Morrow shouted, gun still raised. But the man was laughing. Even with blood pouring down his chest, he laughed, a dry, hollow sound like it came from somewhere far below hell. His eyes glistened with something feral. Something grateful. "I saw him," the man gasped. "I saw what's behind the fog." Cruz moved fast, yanking his arms behind his back, snapping cuffs on with more force than necessary. "You're under arrest, motherfucker," she hissed. "Try another word and I'll break your jaw." He didn't resist. He smiled the whole way out. The interrogation room at the county station was freezing. Morrow stood behind the one-way glass, watching the freak, still unnamed, still smiling, as he sat naked under a blanket, blood dried to his skin like armor. "Who the hell is he?" Cruz asked, stepping beside him. "No ID. No prints. Nothing in the system." Morrow clenched his jaw. He carved symbols into his own fucking body. "That's not random. That's ritual." "And that thing he said, about seeing what's behind the fog?" Morrow didn't answer. "Not yet." Inside the room, the man stared at the mirror. He knew someone was watching. "Want to know where the others are?" he asked, grinning. "The ones still breathing?" Cruz snapped to attention behind the glass. Morrow stepped in. He didn't sit. He didn't ask permission. He simply leaned over the table and said, "Start talking." The man licked his lips. His tongue was black. "I'm not the one you're looking for." "Then who is?" "The one who walks behind. The one who waits for the red fog." Morrow slammed his fist down. "Enough riddles. Names." The man giggled. "They called him Father Willow." Morrow froze. A name. Finally. Back in the office, Cruz pulled up a file. "Shit," she muttered. "He's real. Used to run a Christian youth camp in the 90s. Shut down after 3 boys went missing. Never charged." Morrow's face went hard. He grabbed his coat. "Where was the camp?" "About an hour north. Middle of nowhere." "Then that's where we're going." Cruz hesitated. "You think he's still alive?" Morrow lit another cigarette. "We'll ask him when we find the bodies." The road to the old camp looked like it hadn't seen a vehicle in decades. The cruiser's tires cracked over branches, mud sucking at the wheels. The forest grew denser the farther they drove, like the trees were leaning in, trying to listen. No birds. No wind. Just silence that pressed against the glass like it wanted in. When the cabin came into view, it was barely more than a silhouette. Mold-eaten wood, collapsed roof, broken porch steps. A hand-painted sign dangled from a single rusted nail. Camp Glory, EST 1991. Children of Faith. Children of the Light. Morrow stepped out with his gun drawn. Cruz followed, flashlight ready. This place is a goddamn grave. They pushed through the door. The smell hit instantly, rot, shit, mold, and something metallic underneath it all. Blood. The inside was worse. Religious icons covered the walls, crucifixes, portraits of Jesus, open Bibles. All defaced. Crosses hung upside down. Pages torn and nailed to the ceiling. But the worst was the basement. They found the hatch under a stained rug. "What the fuck is this?" Cruz whispered, heart pounding. Morrow opened it. The darkness below exhaled. The smell clawed up their throats. They descended slowly. Flashlights cut across stone walls, stained with soot and words written in ash. Candles, melted to nubs, surrounded a large wooden table, blackened with old blood. And in the corner, bones. Dozens of tiny bones, arranged like an altar. Skulls, ribs, tiny spines. Children. Cruz staggered back, hand over her mouth. Morrow didn't move. He stared at the bones like they were speaking. Then he saw it, something stuck in the wall. He pulled it out. A Polaroid photo. Blurry. Faded. 3 boys. Smiling. And behind them, a man. Face half obscured by shadow. But the antlers were clear. Cruz looked over his shoulder. "Is that him?" Morrow nodded slowly. Father Willow. The bones were still warm. That was the first thing the forensic tech said when they arrived with backup. Fresh. As an hours old fresh. "Jesus Christ," Cruz muttered, staring at the pile of tiny skulls. "He's still doing it." Morrow lit a cigarette with shaking hands. His eyes were locked on the photo. 3 kids. 1 man. Antlers. The air inside the cabin was thick with rot and rage. "He's escalating," Morrow said. "No more hiding. No more ritual silence. He wants to be seen." Cruz didn't answer. She was reading a burned journal they found buried in a crate in the corner. "Listen to this," she said. "When the red fog rises, the veil breaks. The offering must be pure. The light must bleed." She looked up. "This isn't just psychotic. It's fucking organized." "Cult?" Morrow asked. She nodded. "Or something worse." They drove back in silence. Morrow's head buzzed. He couldn't stop seeing the bones. The arrangement wasn't random. It was a message. He just didn't know how to read it yet. The freak in holding had stopped talking. Sat naked in his cell, scratching symbols into the wall with his fingernails, humming something tuneless and eerie. Cruz stepped into the bullpen, holding a call log. 2 more kids missing. Sisters. Ages 7 and 9. Gone since this morning. Last seen near the riverbank. Morrow closed his eyes. "Fuck," he whispered. "They're accelerating. Whatever this is, it's counting down." That night, Morrow went home. He hadn't stepped into the house since the funeral. His daughter's toys were still on the floor. A drawing of their family still taped to the fridge. He poured a drink. The first in 24 days. He stared at the glass, hands shaking. He drank it. And poured another. Outside, the fog rolled in again. Thicker. Redder. And somewhere, far beyond the trees, a voice whispered. "You took my child." Morrow froze. Then, screams. From the woods. Morrow didn't sleep. He sat in the dark, pistol on the table, ashtray overflowing. Outside, the fog painted the windows crimson. The screams had stopped around 3 a.m. But something was still out there. He could feel it. Something watching. Something waiting. When dawn finally cracked through the sky like a broken egg, Morrow drove. No radio. No phone. Just silence and the distant echo of something he didn't want to name. He didn't go to the station. He went to the river. The place where the sisters were last seen. There was yellow tape and a search team, but no sign of the girls. Then he saw it. Etched into the dirt near the waterline, a symbol. A circle, with jagged lines radiating outward like teeth. He'd seen it before. On the freak's chest. On the walls of the bunker. On the bones. Jesus, he muttered. He turned around. And there, on the opposite bank, stood someone. Tall. Masked. The antlers were unmistakable. Morrow raised his weapon and stepped forward. But the figure melted into the mist like smoke. Gone. At the station, Cruz was waiting. "You look like shit," she said. "Did you find anything on Willow?" She nodded grimly. Last known address was a trailer park near the county line. But it burned down 10 years ago. Official cause, faulty wiring. Unofficial? People said they heard chanting that night. Morrow rubbed his temples. "We're chasing a ghost." "No," Cruz said. "We're chasing a fucking devil." Later that afternoon, they received a package. No sender. Inside, a single VHS tape. And a note. She begged for her sister. Over and over. "So I made her watch." Morrow stared at the tape. He didn't breathe. Didn't blink. Just whispered. "I'm gonna kill this bastard." Morrow didn't watch the tape. Not at first. He couldn't. Instead, he locked himself in the evidence room, stared at the screen for over an hour, fists clenched, heart racing. Then he hit play. The footage was grainy. Night vision. A basement. Crying. 2 girls. One tied to a chair. The other on the floor, screaming her name. And then, he walked in. Tall. Antlers. The fucking mask. The one from the girl's drawing. The one from the photo. The one from Morrow's dreams. The tape cut before anything happened. But the sounds kept going. Screams. Flesh tearing. A wet gurgle. Morrow hit stop. He stood in silence. Shaking. Then he punched the wall until his knuckles split. Cruz found him an hour later. Bloodied, sitting on the floor, eyes red and hollow. "You okay?" she asked. He looked at her like he didn't understand the question. "No," he said finally. "But I know where to go." The VHS case had a watermark. Barely visible. Faded. A manufacturer in Ohio. Small. Local. Out of business for years. But they printed the batch number. Cruz ran it through every system she could access. Got a hit. For shipments, she said. One address within this county. A storage facility. They rolled up to the lot at dusk. Rows of rusted units. Weeds pushing through concrete. Unit 119 was open. The lock snapped. Morrow drew his weapon. Inside, shelves. Hundreds of VHS tapes. Labeled by dates. Victims. A private fucking archive. This sick fuck recorded everything, Cruz whispered, voice trembling. But Morrow wasn't listening. He was staring at one tape. Rebecca, March 17th, 24. His daughter's name. His daughter's birthday. His hands went numb. No, he whispered. But when he opened the case, it was empty. Where's the fucking tape? Morrow screamed, slamming his fist into the metal shelf. Dust scattered. A few tapes tumbled off. Cruz didn't move. She'd never seen him like this. I don't know, she said softly. She died in her goddamn sleep. That's what they told me. That's what the autopsy said. And now this? He kicked the shelf. It shook violently. Cruz stepped closer. Rick, stop. Think. He turned toward her. Face cracked. Voice shattered. What if she didn't die? What if they fucking took her? Back at the station, Cruz ran every file, every photo from Rebecca Morrow's case. The death certificate. The toxicology report. Everything looked clean. Too clean. Then she found it. A name on the second page of the report. J. Holloway. Forensics. She looked it up. The guy died 2 weeks after Rebecca. Suicide. Shotgun to the face. Closed case. Morrow sat in the dark locker room, soaked in sweat, staring at the floor. He remembered the day she died. The scream. The silence. The coroner's blank face. And now. The tape. Rebecca's name. They'd buried a closed coffin. He never saw the body. Cruz walked in with trembling hands. There's a woman you need to talk to, she said. Who? Rebecca's school nurse. She left a voicemail the day your daughter died. Said a man came to pick her up early. Not you. Not your ex. Said he wore a clergy collar. Morrow stood. He didn't speak. Just grabbed his gun and coat. Where is she? Cruz hesitated. She lives alone. Trailer outside Lakeview. Off-grid. Morrow was already walking. Let's go, he said. Cruz didn't ask if he planned to bring her in safely. She just followed. The trailer sat alone in the woods like a secret no one wanted to keep. Morrow parked with headlights off. The fog curled low, thick as blood, swallowing the trees. She might not talk, Cruz said, hand on her weapon. She'll talk, Morrow answered. They approached the door. Before they knocked, it opened. An old woman stood there. Gray hair. Glasses. Veins on her arms like worms. I knew you'd come, she said. I prayed you would. Morrow stepped forward. You were the nurse. She nodded. You saw him. She nodded again. He took my daughter. Her lips trembled. I tried to stop him. I swear. But he had something in his eyes. Like he wasn't alone in there. Who was he? She looked past them. Then whispered, we called him Father. But he wasn't from any church. Morrow's hand curled into a fist. I need names. Locations. Anything. I can give you a name, she said. But it's a place. What? She handed him a photo. Black and white. A church in the woods. No cross. No steeple. Just antlers above the door. They called it the House of the Veil, she said. They said the fog comes from beneath it. Morrow stared at the image. It was real. Cruz took a breath. Where is it? The nurse looked down. Where the map ends. They drove for hours. No GPS. No signal. Only that photo. They followed deer trails, tire tracks, broken signs, until they found it. A clearing. A building. A fucking nightmare. It looked like a church made of bones and rot. No windows. The door was black, heavy, and carved with symbols. Antlers above it. The House of the Veil. Morrow stepped out of the cruiser, gun in hand. Cruz grabbed his arm. Rick, if she's in there. He nodded once. She's not dying in the dark. And then they entered. The air inside the House of the Veil didn't feel like air. It was wet, thick, like breathing through blood. The flashlight cut through the blackness. Dust. Bones. Old robes. Symbols everywhere. Morrow moved slow, gun raised, each step screaming louder in his skull. Cruz followed, silent. Focused. Then, a sound. Whimpering. They found her. In a cage. Naked. Eyes wide, not blinking. Blood on her lips. Rebecca. Alive. Morrow dropped the gun. Sweetheart, his voice cracked. It's me. Daddy's here. She didn't move. Didn't react. Just stared past him. Then she spoke. But the voice wasn't hers. You took what was mine. So I took what was yours. Morrow turned. He was there. Tall. Masked. Antlers. Father Willow. You don't get to walk away, he said, voice like bone on metal. Not after what you did. I don't know you, Morrow said, shaking. You killed my son. Years ago. Drunk. Hit and run. They covered it up. Because you wore a badge. Cruz froze. Morrow's knees buckled. I didn't know. You forgot. But I didn't. The fog remembers. Willow stepped forward. Morrow drew his gun again. Hands trembling. Don't, Cruz said. But it was too late. Willow lunged. Cruz fired. 1 shot. 2. 3. The mask shattered. The antlers fell. He hit the ground. Dead. Hours later. Rebecca slept in Cruz's arms, sedated. Alive. Scarred. Morrow sat outside the ambulance. Bloody. Empty. The red fog finally lifted. Sunlight broke through. But it didn't warm him. He looked at Cruz. Do you believe in hell? She hesitated. After today? Yeah. He lit a cigarette with shaking hands. I'm not going back to the force. She nodded. I didn't think you would. They sat in silence. Then, from the trees. Laughter. High-pitched. Wrong. Echoing. Cruz stood up. Tell me that was just a bird. Morrow didn't answer. He stared into the trees. And whispered. It's not over.